Hi, everyone. Thank you. This is our first ever podcast. Thank you so much, Revolt World, Revolt TV, Sean Combs, Detavio Samuels, and the whole team for having us today. This is very exciting. My name is Phillana Williams. I am the host of CultureVersations. And the purpose of this podcast is plain and simple. It's delivering information, pertinent information about what's happening in this world to the people in a context that they can understand. Oftentimes we hear a lot of jargon that goes on in the country, but we hear it in formats and on media where it's not broken down in a way that just permeates to the people. So the purpose of this podcast is to do that. It's a collision of culture and politics. And we'll have some amazing people here today with us. I'd like to announce all of them. I'll start with the beautiful Nazanin Mendy. Yes, Nazanin hails from the West Coast, from Los Angeles, California. She's Mexican-American and Persian. She's a model, she's an actress, she's an influencer, and she has recently become a life coach. And the name of her platform is You Bloom. Welcome, Nazanin.
Thank you so much.
And next we have the beautiful and talented Tiara Monet.
Thank you, Phillana.
She's an icon, she's an OG in the business. She's a media, culture, creator, businesswoman. She has her own boutique called 1130. She's an East Coast girl from the Bronx. But we're happy to have her here in Atlanta, Georgia. And thank you for coming and joining us.
Thank you for having me, Phillana.
Next, she's many things to me, but first and foremost, she's a friend. She's a mentor. I was an entertainment executive with no thoughts about politics at all. Hence CultureVersations. But the 60th mayor, former 60th mayor of Atlanta, the Honorable Keisha Lance Bottoms. And I cannot leave out that she actually, after 4 years in office, and after helping to get the current President Joe Biden elected, she went to the White House at his calling, which is hard to do when you're a mother, a wife, and mother of four. And she worked in the White House as his director of public engagement. So thank you for your service. And last but certainly not least, as a woman, as a Black woman, I'm astounded by Madam DA Fani Willis for many reasons, which we'll get into, but she has done in her lifetime, but certainly as the district attorney for Fulton County, she's made some amazing, bold leaps. And she's here today because what's most important about what she's doing really isn't being spoke about. And so we wanted to create a safe space for her to talk about it so that we can understand who she is, what her job is, and why she's doing what she's doing. So without further ado, Madam DA Fani Willis. So let's get into it. And we're gonna start out on the culture side of things. And Tiara, we'll start with you. So oftentimes women, and especially women of color, we do astounding, amazing things. Leaps and bounds, we do amazing things. But oftentimes we may feel incomplete because we don't have that life partner by us. I, for one, I'm a single mom, and I have been. But are we incomplete? Is there a right or wrong way to live, to be successful, to choose to live? And oftentimes, we shouldn't wait. We should have the courage to be happy where we are, with who we are, with our feet on the ground. And so the first part of this conversation really is delving into that with these amazing women. And so, Tiara, I'll start with you. You, amazing. You've done incredible things, and you found love in a different race, a person. But I want to ask you, did that help you in terms of who you became? Like your partnership with Tim, was that something that helped you sustain? Did it help in your journey? Did the partnership help?
Oh, wow. Well, I think having a partner in life in general is just a major key. Not saying that you can't navigate life without a partner, because there's so many amazing women that have done things on their own, and that's just an ode to women in general. But it's sort of like, like in a cockpit, you need two pilots because somebody has to focus on this and somebody can focus on that, and you're not fatigued at the end of a long leg because you guys split it down the middle. And being a woman who grew up, I didn't really see a lot of positive examples of healthy partnership growing up. So I just didn't believe in it. I didn't think it was a real thing. And I realized really young that in me chasing success and a career that I wasn't dating, I wasn't meeting anyone, men weren't really approaching me. And people have like a hard time believing that, but I was, working, I was hustling. So where was I gonna meet someone? And I decided to get really intentional about dating. And I realized really early that the pool was really small for me, especially with men that look like me. And it was just like, okay, I'm gonna have to open this up because, the numbers aren't there. And I'm so glad that I opened myself up, because not only do I have a partner that I learn about every day, because we're obviously so much alike, but we learn about each other every day. He's pushed me in ways that I don't think I would have been able to do on my own. He's taught me so much about business, where I can probably teach him more about, loving and, being considerate and compassionate in different ways as a woman. But he's teaching me how to be a businesswoman and how to be about my numbers, something that I'm still working on. But he's helped me so much in so many different ways, and we constantly are learning from each other. And I think if I hadn't opened myself up, I'd probably be single right now, probably still successful. But I do think that the success in a healthy partnership is definitely like that foundation I need to just keep growing. I feel like the sky is, limitless at this point.
I'm curious as to, from your perspective, why was the pool limited? And I asked that question, I had this conversation, just had it with my kids this morning actually, about the brown girls not always being chosen by the brown boys, and asking my oldest son to help explain that to me. So from your perspective, what were the limitations there?
I mean, I think one, it was being really young and making money really young. I came into success really young on YouTube in my early 20s, and no one around me had money, So that was something that I think a lot of men, Black men in particular, were intimidated by. And I was always referred to as the bougie girl, or I just had these really high, expectations. And it's just no, I have high expectations of myself. And I'm sorry that scares you away, but I want to do big things in life. And I realized really young that the numbers, they aren't there. And I think successful women have it a lot harder, because sometimes you have to choose the career, because you have to literally date with so much, you have to make it your life essentially, just so the numbers are there.
So this is, I know, a conversation single women have a lot. Is it about somebody making the same amount of money as you, or is do you think that you are sacrificing something if someone is not economically at your level? Did you feel that way?
This is a huge conversation right now that's going around the internet. It's the light bill. Y'all heard that conversation. But I think it's really hard because women are making so much money now. So, I mean, in the beginning of my relationship, it was just I just wanted someone that had a steady job, someone that had, because I'm okay, if I'm making this amount, I'll be okay if I meet a man that has a great job, a degree, but hey, I'm in this industry, I don't have health insurance. So having a man that's in that type of industry, this is a win for me. I'm gonna be saving so much money, that's adding to me. But I think we have to kind of pick and choose what's more important. And unfortunately, when you are successful, I think the type of men, they're kind of intimidated by you. So it's gonna be impossible for you to meet a man that's really secure with himself. The man has to be secure enough to say, my wife is out earning me. That's not the case for me. But I think that's just the reality right now. Women are really winning.
And Nas, we'll pivot to you. known you for a long time, beautiful inside and out. You actually found love at an early age, and just recently you found yourself in a transition to becoming a single woman. You have your tribe,
Yes.
and you started your own organization, You Bloom. You spoke about depression, finding yourself, this entire journey for you. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I mean, let me start off by saying some of our lowest moments align us with our highest self. And luckily for myself, that's what it did. And being at my lowest, I didn't think I could rise, but I kept going. And during that journey of going, I created You Bloom. And I always say, You Bloom saved me. You Bloom is saving other people. It's a life coaching certification membership that I created. But it's also saving me. My members, my clients, they inspire me. And I needed them at such a crucial moment in my life. Helping other people, pouring into them, pours into myself. So yeah, I mean, I'm grateful for my tribe. Without my tribe, without my girls, without my friends, without my family, the divorce would have been so much more difficult. So much more difficult. Our real friends and our family will keep it 100. Even through our darkest times, they will keep it real. And I'm just so fortunate to have that.
I'm so glad that you're having this mental health conversation, because especially in communities of color, people still believe that it's taboo. But do you have, mental health is so layered. It's sort of like going on the internet or going on the social media and diagnosing your physical illness. Do you think that there are some dangers in having this big conversation on mental health via social media?
Absolutely. There is such thing as toxic positivity, and we see it every day on Instagram. People post their positive quotes, but are they really living it? Are they really experiencing it? Are they standing in their truth? Or are they just posting it because of the trend? There's so much danger in that, You tend to follow the crowd, and then you tend to fall off. Mental health is only as sustainable as you want it to be. And I always tell my clients that. And it takes work. It takes filtering out the truth and the not so real aspects of what's online.
Keisha?
So the question was, am I better together? Absolutely. And the reason I met my husband when I was 21. And so in many ways, we had to grow up together, and that comes with its own set of challenges. But when we are at odds and when we are a house divided, we are truly divided. Our efforts are divided, and we just aren't making the progress that we could and should make. So for me, I'm past 50, so it's been more than half my life having a life partner. I got married at 24. I really don't know adulting without a life partner. But by the grace of God, it will be 29 years in October. And when you talked about the toxic positivity, I don't post the bad arguments. I don't post when we're not speaking. So you have to be really careful when people say life goals or couple goals. I'm like, do you really know what that goal is? When people ask what's the key to the longevity, I say it's just not giving up on each other. And it's never 50-50. It's never been 50-50. Sometimes it's 10-90, sometimes it's 1-99. But thankfully, we've never given up on each other at the same time. So we're still standing.
And I applaud you, because I know your family life, and I know how hard you go for your family and how much you love them, but how hard you go in your career too. Your husband, Derek, has a very powerful job too, but you both find the time to partner for the kids. You have 4 children, something you chose to do because you adopted 4 kids, and that's when they were infants, and that's amazing. Amazing. How hard was it for you going from mayor, making the decision not to run again for mayor, getting a call from the President of the United States to go to the White House, to be away from your family? How hard of a decision was that for you, and what was your support system?
Oh gosh, that was really hard because I made the decision not to run for mayor from a position of strength. It was truly my choice. My polling numbers were pretty high, which was astonishing coming out of 2020. The president had held a fundraiser for me, so I had the money in the bank. So all these things lined up, but I knew that my season as mayor had ended. Something many people don't know, I've been asked several times to join the administration, even while I was still mayor. And there's this picture, the president came to Atlanta to do a rally for Senators Warnock and Ossoff. They were running, and there's a picture of him pointing in my face. And we were having a really stern conversation about whether or not I would go to DC. And people said, well, you don't tell the president no. I'm like, well, I never knew a president. So, that's just not what God is saying to me. But when I was asked again to go to the White House, you just know when you know. And for me, that's about my faith journey. And for the first time, I was aligned, my husband was aligned, my mother was aligned, my kids were aligned. And so it was the most extraordinary experience, professional experience I've ever had. It's nothing like walking into the White House. And there was not a single day that I didn't walk in there and go, I'm in the White House. Or to sit in the Oval Office and have the President of the United States say, what do you think? And when you answer that question, not just answering for myself, but for all of you all too, it was an honor. And every time I would go through the basement, there are several ways you can get into the White House. I would go through the basement and it smelled like cardboard because there are boxes and things. And I would always think of my grandfather, who would go into the back of buildings and hotels and businesses downtown, and his truck smelled like cardboard. And there's a part in the basement of the White House where you can see the foundation. There's a little glass panel. This is the foundation that slaves built this foundation. And so when I would walk in there and I would think about my grandfather, and I would think multiple times a week, I am the hope of the slave, and I'm here. And so I'm so glad I didn't go when I was first asked. Very happy that I did go the last time I was asked, and represented all of who we are and all of who we hope to be.
Madam DA, take a different approach with yours. We're gonna read a little bit about you, and Keisha, as I read, if you can just stop, because this is really important. I don't think many of us understand her journey, and I think that's important before we speak or pass any type of judgment, good or bad, on someone. I think it's important to know where they came from. You're a mother of 2, have daughters. Your father, a criminal defense attorney, was a member of the Black Panther Party and represented the Black Panthers as their legal counsel. That's just wow. Okay.
That second part is not quite accurate. He went to law school because of the fact that when he would get locked up so often, he talked about it would always be white lawyers there to represent them. And he just found it very sad that there weren't any lawyers of color. And so that is what propelled him to go to law school.
Gotcha.
And Fani and I, she's still Fani to me, I'm Keisha to her. We met at the Kendall Law Firm. Shout out to Alvin Kendall, who's in here somewhere. What was that? You had just graduated, 1997? 96. I was 94. And we used to call Fani Lil Willis because she was the baby in the firm. Can you talk about what you experienced with your dad, because I've heard you talk about going into your dad's office and him having you work on files when you were a little girl, and how you took that into practicing law.
Yes, of course. And there were so many interesting conversations here. So I hope I get to get in on that as well. And I'll try to weave it in here. I was raised by a single parent, but not like most people. I was raised by a single father. My mother was in my life, but she was on the other side of the country. If you talk to her to this day, she will still complain because she said my father knew all the judges, and so he won custody. Something which of course was unheard of in the 70s, but God really does what you need for what your journey is going to be. Interestingly enough, my father did not want to be a lawyer. He went to law school because of that experience. He wanted to be a writer on films and was told very early there was just not a place for 20-year-old Black men to do that during that time, and went to law school and was a very excellent lawyer. As a single parent, as so many single women or fathers know, he wouldn't have anywhere to take me on Saturdays. And so our routine would be that on Saturdays, he would go to court because he was a criminal defense lawyer. And guess what? On Friday night, a lot of folks get locked up. And so he would be there Saturday for those first appearance hearings to represent the clients. And I would just sit in the courtroom, and I would go sit up on a judge's bench. And I remember the judge used to ask me, do we send them home or do they go to the back? Which means they go back to jail. And my father said it was a mean judge. He's like, what is that judge asking you? I'm like, they asking me, do they want to go home or do they go to the back? He was like, what? That's what you all are up there talking about. But from the time I was 7, 8, or 9, I was putting my father's files together, which were mainly murders and drug cases. I tease him today because he's 80 and say that is child abuse. I was looking at like dead people at 7. That's surely not a normal way to raise your child. And I was listening to your love journey. For me, I've made a different choice, and there's a lot of angles that I want to talk about that at. If you Google my name right now, the first thing that will come up is Fani Willis's husband. I find that so annoying. That the thing that people think is the most interesting thing to Google is Fani Willis's husband. And it just talks about where do they put the significance of a woman. And I think that's problematic and something we need to think about. But I don't want you to hear me wrong. I do think that a relationship is important, that love is important, and that you are better with a partner. I have always limited my dating pool to African-American men. And I've done that very intentionally. I think that a lie has been told on African-American men. I think that African-American men, in my experience, understanding you're looking at the ultimate daddy's girl, I've never seen anything but strong, great Black men. And every time I'm in trouble, it's Black men that have come to my aid. And so my lovers have always been Black men. My children are born to my ex-husband, who was a Black man. And whereas I could say a few things about him, ultimately he was a good person and we just didn't work out. And there I've had relationships along the way and continue to have relationships with Black men that have supported me. So that has been my choice. I think that they have taught me a lot of things. I think I have grown from them. I think they have shown me business things. I think when I'm low, they're there. When I'm high, they're there. And I tell people, like, so much so that when I ran for district attorney, I found Black men attacking me. And I was almost in shock because that was such a foreign experience to me. And I do understand sitting there, they absolutely have the right to do that because I was an elected official, but it just not had been my life experience. They had always been my support system and who I choose to love.
Got it. Amazing. Amazing. I'm going to speed it up at the sake of time. I'm going to list a few things and then we're going to go into another part of the conversation with you, Madam DA. One of your most prominent cases was the prosecution of 12 educators in the Atlanta Public School cheating scandal. They were accused of correcting answers entered by students. 11 of the 12 teachers were convicted of racketeering under Georgia's RICO statute. That's really important to know. I would like to know this too, that I know that right now we know that what you are most prominently known for are the indictment of 28 members of the YSL organization, in addition to Wyeth and Lucci on RICO charges. And you also indicted 19 individuals who have been accused of trying to overturn the 2020 Georgia presidential election results, one of those people being Donald Trump. However, As a woman, I would like to say that there's something that you've done that's so amazing. There are about over 4,000 raped kids that were sitting at Grady Hospital. Some of them were tested, but results were never discovered, and some were not tested. Many were not tested. And you decided to make sure through, I want to say it right, the Saki, is it a bill? Is it a,
It's grant funding.
it's grant funding. You decided to make sure that all of those rape kids were tested. And I want to talk about that, absolutely. So those are potential rape offenders that are on the streets. Those are potential victims, not potential victims, but victims who will never know, who wouldn't never know what the outcome of that. They wouldn't know. You imagine carrying that with you since the 80s, the 90s to 2000s, not knowing the outcome of that. It's something that you didn't have to do, but you did it. And I want to talk about that, the decision to open those, to actually test those kids.
So this is something that I just find so troubling, and it's every city in the United States. What we know is that the reality is most of those rape kids were Black and brown women, and uneducated women, impoverished communities, and community after community after community after community allowed those kids to just sit and never be tested. Since we have started this testing, what is frightening about those kids is so often, and we are not anywhere near going through all of them yet, and this is done because we partnered with the United States Department of Justice. They're giving us this money, is we find serial rapist after serial rapist. It's just really disgusting. And then in addition to that, you will find other violent crimes in their profiles. And so it's very sad when you look at those cases. Not only are you bringing justice to this particular young lady, but how many crimes could have been prevented if the first young lady's kit was tested? Because the predators that do that, they do it over and over again. And so I think it's something that's extremely important. Some of these people we are learning are on the street still, have to be in custody. Sometimes they're in custody for another crime, and we just stopped one that was about to get out and was a predator. And so I think it's something very important to do.
And I know you can't talk about open cases, but I can. You received a letter from Jim Jordan, chair one of the congressional committees, essentially threatening you for your investigation and indictment into the former president, and threatening to take away some of this money. And I wish we had the letter to put up on the screen, but you essentially said your ignorance of the law is on full display right now. And when you take away our funding, these are the things that you are taking money away from. So you can't talk about the open cases, but tell us about that courage and that fearlessness. I've had an opportunity to talk about it a lot about you. So I want to hear it from you.
Well, I just think in this job, and women in general standing into these positions, to threaten me is a waste of time. It's a complete waste of their time. And it's not going to get anyone results. And I don't care if it's a member of Congress, I don't care if it's a local, someone in the community. One thing that people learn about me is I'm an equal opportunity prosecutor. So if you come into this community and you violate the law, you're gonna be held accountable. And some people have, taken exception to you could be rich or popular or famous. That does not give you the right to hurt people. And what they don't do is sit in my seat. And so I am the one there with the crying mama that usually looks like me. And they're telling me stories like my baby was gonna graduate, so we buried him in his cap and gown. And it is not until you have that kind of burden on your shoulders that you understand why it's so important and that people have value. It does not matter your educational level. It does not matter what your zip code is. None of that matters. You are entitled to the same protection as people that don't look like you that live in different communities. And believe me, I'm gonna fight for those communities as well, because I cannot stand a bully and I can't stand people that hurt other people.
And we were talking about this backstage. People don't have any concept of the level of threats and hatred that are directed at your way. You were sharing your ex-husband, you all hadn't been together in 18 years. People showed up on his doorstep trying to intimidate you, your 80-year-old father's doorstep.
Right. No, it's been very troubling. I've become very private about my family because of the threats. I have 20-year-olds. You know, they've doxed them. They've doxed my father. They've
Explain to people what that
So what doxing is, and in particular, just recently on a Russian website, y'all figure out why Russia would be interested. They put the information not only of me and my home address, but also some of my loved ones' addresses. Said a lot of racial things. I've been called the N-word so many times that I don't even think I hear it anymore. But a lot of ugly and nasty things about me. But just with the purpose of you should go and intimidate and threaten this person and their family because of certain prosecutions.
Showing up at your ex-husband's house. I mean, it's one thing when you put your name on the ballot and you run for office. What's this like for the people who, what's this like for your loved ones?
It's difficult, you know, and I felt really bad. My ex-husband is remarried. His wife was there. We have a really good relationship. You know, when your kids get 20, y'all start combining forces like they crazy. We need to work on them right now. And so it really bonds you because you have these love for these people and you want to see them successful. And so me and him have a really great friendship. And I felt terrible, you know, and I'm asking him can you get out of where you live? You know, what can we do? I had my security do things to try to make sure that they took safety precautions, but it's very unfair to the other people. And it's a waste of time. It's not going to stop anything that I'm doing.
And that's a threat to our democracy.
It is a threat to our democracy.
I want to talk a little bit more about the education piece, and thank you for that. Naz and Tier and I were talking last night just about sometimes culturally how we don't understand the processes. And so your job as district attorney for Fulton County, how is that different from, let's say, Atlanta Police Department, College Park Police Department, Fulton County Sheriff? Like, how do you fit in? How does that work? When do you come into play?
So it's interesting. So I have 55 police departments that report to the district attorney's office. If you think in Fulton County, there are 15 cities and each city has a police department. So all of those 15 cities report to me, as well as the sheriff and Fulton County PD, as well as the railroad. Most of our hospitals have a police department, our colleges. Any case that happens in Fulton County, that's a felony, because I only deal with felonies. I do not deal with misdemeanors. Any felony case that comes, they bring it to our office and they do it to the standard of probable cause. So that's the lowest standard in the law. One of the things I'm proudest of is the last district attorney would just take what the police said, fax over a statement, and a case would get indicted, and they had what they call the complaint room. I do not allow my office to indict a case unless we have evidence. And so that department has become very big, which means if we don't have the drug lab, then we're not going to charge you because for all I know, it's not drugs. If we don't have the body cam video that we've reviewed, if we don't have the evidence, we're not going to do it. And I think that's really important. What we find is about 12% of the cases are never even indicted once we do that. And that sounds like maybe it's not much until you understand that means out of every 1,000 cases, 120, those people aren't going to have to deal with the court system because someone actually looked at it and evaluated, was the evidence here to prosecute them? So a really big deal. One of the other things we've done is Fulton County, to what I thought was just a shame, did not have diversion. And so diversion is that you could only go if you were actually indicted. Well, an indictment is a scarlet letter. And so what I did was through my budget and funding, we created a pre-indictment diversion program. And so some of those cases, the evidence is there. They absolutely did it. But, you know, it's their first mistake or it's their second mistake, and we can turn their lives around. And so in-house, we manage a diversion program. That's another way that we do not have to charge people. And it's altruistic, but it's not altruistic. I want to be able to focus the prosecution's efforts onto the people that are shooting folks, the people that are killing people. You know, when I got here, there were over 200 murders not indicted. I cannot imagine the pain for their families. I lost my aunt to murder. It's a pain like no other. It's already painful enough when you lose someone to death. It's a whole nother ballgame when someone snatches them from you and they were living their life. And so I wanted to make sure that those homicides, I make no apologies. If you kill somebody in this jurisdiction, I'm gonna try to slam you.
And I want to make sure that we're all clear about the process on that. So all of those cases are brought to your attention. You're not the one bringing the case. You decide to on the indictment for criminal cases.
That's absolutely right. So the police make the arrest, they bring it. The people have usually a first appearance. Most people get out at first appearance, but the decision whether to take it from that point on to prosecution, that's where the DA gets involved.
Thank you.
A lot has been made about the big name prosecutions and who their high powered attorneys are. You've gone head to head with a lot of these people and won. Is that right?
Absolutely. So I was thankful because you said I've been practicing 24 years, but I'm getting old over here. So I'm closer to 28 years of practicing law, but I was prepared for this job. I was a prosecutor of that time. I did some criminal defense work, but I did prosecution for 16 years and I was a murder prosecutor. I really still am a murder prosecutor. In my heart and in my soul, that is the work that I love to do. And so I personally have been first chair for over 100 murders, well over 100 murders, and prosecuted more than those. And so they'll name these lawyers and I'm like,
Steve Sadow representing Donald Trump.
we've seen each other. We're not afraid.
All right. She ain't never scared.
Never scared. I love it. We're running out of time, but why? And I say why because, I mean, as we've seen, there's so many things that go unprosecuted. There's over 4,000 rape cases that have gone untested. There are plenty of cases that sit there forever. What is your why? Like, why did you decide to do the hard things? Because everything that we've mentioned is the hard thing, and you did it. Like, what's your why?
So I was a prosecutor and I left to run for judge. That was unsuccessful. And then God really kind of talked to God. I did not understand that. I'm used to winning. Like, how did that not work out? Especially when it was 49.8% of the vote. But I asked him to just lead me. And so he did lead me. I got to be the chief judge for my city. I got to prosecute some judges in that time, which was really good to be able to hold judges accountable. And then people started coming to me saying, we need a DA that's going to be fair. And this is the reality. If we are not at the table, then we don't get to make any decisions. And we need to be at the table. I have taken part of my budget and I'm teaching a course all year long in the school system. People will say, well, is that really appropriate prosecution? And what I tell them is, last year I touched 150 kids. This year we're going to touch over 400 children between our programming. It's absolutely prosecution because I'd rather see them in a classroom than a courtroom. But if you don't have people that will pour into our children, and let's just tell the truth, think that little Black boys are worth saving and have value, then they won't do the things that can help to save them. And so I think it's very important that we be here. I'm not gonna lie, there are days when my privacy has been taken from me so much because I can't just move around like I like to move around on a Saturday. You know, yesterday I would have liked to have just gotten up, gone to Lennox, not have my security with me, just had a regular day, right? Had a drink. And I can't do that without making a lot of stances. But if it's not me, who is it gonna be? And I am qualified to do this job. I put in the work and the years. I have the heart of service to do this job. I know that people have value no matter who they are. My father has beat that into my head since I was a very little child, that everyone is entitled to dignity. And you need someone sitting in these seats, making those decisions, saying that people from all communities matter.
Moving. One more quick question. Do you believe song lyrics can be used as evidence in court cases?
I do. And I'm glad we get to end in this. And, you know, when your kids are little, they're always telling you, that's not fair, that's not fair. That's what children tell you. And this is what I would say to people. And I don't understand, you know, I'm 50 plus now. It's hard for me to still say that. I'm 50 plus now, but people will rob you and they'll take your jewelry from you, some authentic piece of jewelry that only belongs to you. And then they put it on social media. You a fool if you think the prosecutor's not gonna use that. That's silly. If you commit a crime and then you brag about it in a song, it's a confession. Because you put a beat behind it does not make it any less of a confession. And we are going to use it to convict you.
And what would you say to those who describe that as creative freedom is that creative freedom? Like, how do you determine whether those words are true or not in the song?
Well, I think you absolutely have to be able to tie those songs to a specific act. They have to have some specificity. Again, I don't understand this makes, I'm just gonna say it, like I told you, I've always known men to protect me. And I can't imagine my child's father or husband or a man that loved me allowing someone to shoot at me and then brag about it and there not be consequences. So I would be participating in that prosecution and process, because you don't get to hurt my mama or my woman and there not be consequences. So I don't understand the culture of we're gonna allow people to hurt people that we love and we're not gonna come forward. I'm telling you, as long as I sit here as the DA, if you brag about doing harm to people in my community and you put it on social media, I thank you for it. And I think you have the right to that creative expression. Please continue to use it.
Well, you heard it straight from the source. And we could go on forever, but we are out of time.
We need to put that to a beat.
Yes. But no, seriously, thank you, ladies. This conversation is one of many. Women, people, all of us, the culture, we are powerful, we are strong. Know your strength, know your worth, know who you are. Thank you, ladies. Nazanin, Tiara, Keisha, Madam DA, thank you. Thank you all for joining us today for CultureVersations. Enjoy the rest of Revolt World and hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Make some noise, make some noise, make some noise.